Okay, time for a level 4 problem. So let's give us a level 4 problem. What does a level 4 problem look like? Well, a level 4 problem, it's got to be definitely harder than what we've done before. So how about 3x squared plus 5x plus 1 equals 9. Now, what makes this a level 4 problem? Well, first thing is the number in front of x squared is no longer 1, right? It's 3, which is kind of terrible because 3 is not a perfect square. And the number in front of x, well, that's a 5. We're used to being it even. We're used to it being even. Now it's odd. Oh, that's terrible. So let's see if we can use the property of mathematics to take this terrible problem and make it not so terrible. So the first thing I want to do is I want to take the 3x squared and I want to make it a perfect square. How do we make it a perfect square? Well, if I multiply it by 3, right? 3 times 3 is 9. That would be a perfect square. So I'm going to multiply by 3. But of course, if I multiply one side by 3, I have to multiply the other side by 3. I can't just multiply 3x squared by it, right? So I get 9x squared plus 15x plus 3 equals 27. Well, guess what? That's kind of cool. That 9x squared is now a nice perfect square. That's great, but guess what? That 15x is still odd. That's unfortunate. So I want to make it even. Now, you might say, well, let's just multiply it by 2. That'd make it 30x. Well, that's pretty reasonable. But the problem is, if I multiply 9x squared by 2, I get 18x, and that's not a perfect square. So I'm going to do a mathematical trick. I'm going to use a property. There's a property that says that if you have a perfect square and you multiply it to another perfect square, guess what you get? You get a perfect square. So what I'm going to do, instead of multiplying everything by 2, I'm going to multiply by 4, because 4 is a perfect square. So multiplying everything by 4, I get 36x squared plus 60x plus 12 equals 108. Okay, now this is looking a lot better. Let's see why it looks so much better. The reason it looks so much better, right, is because taking that 36x squared, that's a nice perfect square. That's just 6x times 6x. That 60x dividing it into 2 equal parts is just 30x and 30x. And in order to get it, I had to multiply it by positive 5. And 5 times 5 is 25. And that's really good. That all works out except for the fact that, right, our only problem is our usual problem, and that is that this and this are not the same. So we just have to force that 12 to become a 25. And we can force that 12 to become a 25 by adding 13 to both sides. So in other words, my new polynomial is going to be 30. That's 6 is really ugly. I was trying to get away with writing an x and I messed up. So 36x squared plus 60x plus, what did I say, adding 13, so that's 25, equals 121. Now, we happen to know that this thing is a nice perfect square. So in other words, we get 6x plus 5 quantity squared equals 121, which means that this thing has to equal, that means whatever's inside there has to equal either 11 or e negative 11. What's inside there? Well, 6x plus 5. So I know we haven't seen something quite this complicated before, but we can solve this, right? I know we can. If we can solve quadratics, we can solve this. So I get, actually, let's move this to another page because I'm running out of room. So I'm going to take 6x plus 5, negative 11. So 6x plus 5 equals 11 or negative 11. I'm going to subtract 5 from all my terms. I get 6x equals 6 or negative 16. Dividing by 6, I get x equals 1 or negative 16/6, which is negative 8/3. Boom, we just took a hard one and we solved it. Cool. Let's take, you know what? Let's take another hard one. And now let's just see how this goes. Let's do another hard one. Let's see if you guys can do it. Now, actually, before we do that, let's go through the steps because there were some steps here, right? It was harder. It was definitely harder. So let's talk about it. Kind of go back a second here. So the first thing we had to do is we had to take our first term, our x squared term, and we had to make it a perfect square. And we did that by taking the coefficient in front of the x squared, and we said, what would make it a perfect square? And we squared it, right? 3 squared is 9, but we're not going to square everything. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to say, what did we have to multiply by? We multiplied by 3. So what I did, so whatever turns that first coefficient into a perfect square, you have to multiply everything, your entire equation by that. So in this case, we multiplied by 3, so we had to multiply everything by 3. The next thing we did, right, is now we had a perfect square here. We had to take this term and turn it into an even term. And we said we couldn't multiply by 2, so instead we had to multiply everything by 4, because that would keep this a perfect square while making this even, right? At that point, we were back down to a level, we were basically back down to a level 3 problem, which brought us back down to a level 1 problem, okay? So let's go through the process. Let's go through the process with a new problem. So I'm going to take 3x squared. Apparently I'm going to do this in purple. Minus 7x plus 6 equals 6. Okay, so let's see what we can do with this one. Wait a minute. You know what? We already did a 3x squared one. Let's, you know what? Scratch that, scratch that, scratch that. Bye, 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 bye. I don't want to do another 3x one. We already know that one. We don't know that one, but let's do a different problem. How about instead let's do 5x squared minus 32x minus 21. Sorry, not minus 21. Minus 14 equals 7. This is why you should be prepared for before you do these things instead of just doing them on the fly. But I'm going to do them on the fly anyway. Okay, let's see what we got here. So, well, middle term looks kind of nice. That's a nice even number. That's kind of cool. But guess what? The first term is definitely not an even number. So let's see what we can do. So we have to turn it into a perfect square. So I'm going to multiply everything by 5, right? Because that will turn into a nice perfect square. So I get 25x squared, and 32 times 5 is 160. Ew, that's a big number, but it's not bad. And then 14 times 5 is just 70, and 7 times 5 is 35. Okay, first term's a perfect square, and guess what? That middle term is already even. So normally, right, we would have multiplied through by 4, but we don't need to. It's already a nice even number, so let's go. Let's see what we can do. Again, if it wasn't even, we would have multiplied everything by 4, but because it was, we're not going to do that anymore. So I'm going to take that 25x squared, and I'm going to make it 25x squared, put there. So I get, that's 5x and 5x. I'm going to take that 160x, and I'm going to divide it into 2 pieces, so negative 80x. Negative 80x. What did I have to multiply to get negative 80? I had to multiply 5x by 16, or negative 16. So minus 16. And then 16 times 16 is, I think, 256. Let me double check though. Yes, it is 256. So, okay. So we're close, right? The only thing that's off, as usual, is this and this. So let's make it work. So in order for those two to be the same, well, what do I have to add to it? Well, I have to add 256. I have to add a lot. I have to add 326 to both sides. Okay, that's fine. I'm going to add 326. Huge number, but whatever. We'll do it. So we get 25x squared minus 160x. So negative 70 plus 326 is 256, and 35 plus 326 is 361. Okay, it looks bad, but you know what? It really isn't, because we already know this is a perfect square. So what does that tell us? Well, that tells us that 5x minus 16 quantity squared equals 361, which means, well, you know what, I'm going to do this on the next page because I'm running out of room. So 5x minus 16 equals 361. So 5x minus 16 squared equals 361. I hope that's right. I think it is. So that means that something, right? So that something squared equals either the positive square root of 361 or the negative square root of 361. And what equals that? Well, 5x minus 16. So let's solve this. Okay, so I'm going to add 16 to both sides. Well, I'm going to add 16 to everything. There's not really both sides. And I get 5x equals 16 plus square root of 361. Or, what was that? What did I add to both sides? 16. So 16 minus the square root of 361. And then I'm going to divide everything by 5. So in the end, I get 16 plus square root of 361 over 5, or 16 minus the square root of 361 over 5. Are they bad numbers? Yes. Were we able to do it? Yes. Awesome. Okay, you know what? Let's just do, I was thinking about doing one more. Let's do one more. Okay, let's go fast on this one, just because I don't want to, nope, yep. So here's what I want you to try doing. So let's take, how about, let's take the one that I was going to do before. So 3x squared plus 7x, and we're going to say equals 6. Ooh, that's ugly. Well, okay. So first thing we want to do is, in this case now, well, let's see what we can do. Let's see what we can do. Because this is ugly, but that doesn't mean it has to be ugly. That doesn't mean we can't do stuff, right? So let's see what we can do here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the normal stuff. So I'm going to take that 3x and I want to make it a perfect square. So I'm going to multiply everything by 3. So I get 9x squared plus, by the way, just to make sure that was correct, this is a 7, not a 2. So this is 21x equals, and I multiplied by 3, so that equals 18. Now let's take that 21x, and it is not, it's not even, so remember when it's not even, what do? We multiply by 4, so I get 36x squared plus 84x equals 18 times 4, which is 72. Okay, that's looking pretty good. That's looking pretty good. Let's see what we can do. Now notice, we don't have a third term there, like, right? It goes 30x, 6x squared plus 84x. We're used to a third term after that, but who cares? It doesn't need to be there. We're going to add something to both sides anyway, so let's do it. So making our box, I get 36x squared here, which is just 6x and 6x. I get 84x, which means I'm going to divide that into two nice pieces, which is 42x. 42x. What did I have to multiply 6x to get 42x? I had to multiply it to positive 7. So in other words, this is going to be 49. So that's my missing piece. So I'm going to add 49 to both sides. So I get 36x squared plus 84x plus 49 equals 72 plus 49, which is, really? Is it 121? Yes, it is. Wow. Okay. You know, I'm going to be honest here. I actually did not know that. Like, I really did not know we were going to get a nice perfect square there. That was totally by accident. I'm super happy that we did, but whatever. Okay. So we know this is a perfect square, so I get 6x plus 7 quantity squared equals 121. And of course, we're going to do that on the next page. So 6x plus 7 squared equals 121, which means this thing has to equal 11 or e negative 11. What is it? So that 6x plus 7 has to equal that. So subtracting 7. I'm hurrying up because there's like a 15-minute time limit on YouTube, and I don't want to have issues. So 4 or negative 18 divided by 6, we get 4 divided by 6 are 2/3, and 18 divided, so that is negative 3. And I've got 30 seconds left to just like ramble on so I don't go past the YouTube thing. No, I won't do that. That's our answer. Go play with some more. I got a really good challenge for you if you really want to try it. Take ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0 and solve it for x. See what you can do. That's a cool one.